Welcome everybody to this meeting of the Scrutiny Committee, People and Communities. First item on the agenda is to note substitutes in accordance with Committee Procedure Rule 8. We have Councillor Platts for Councillor Pascoe and Councillor Eves for Councillor Brown. And the apologies for absence are Councillor Pascoe and Councillor Brown. Are there any declarations of interest from members in respect of any matter on the agenda? No? Thank you. Minutes of the last meeting, they're to be agreed by general affirmation. The meeting was held on the 12th of July, and I take it you've all read them. Can I have a show? Thank you very much. Thank you. To consider any items that I have as urgent business, and I have none. So we go on to the main body of the meeting, which is number 6, Environment Act 2021, Waste and Resource Efficiency, Recycling Mid-Sussex 1, 2, 3 trial. And I invite Simon Hughes to introduce the report.
Thank you, Chairman. Recommendations are set out, as you see, in paragraph 1 of the report. And the aim is for you to note the context and the background of the Environment Act and how we're responding to the Act and what we know currently about the Act. We aim to do that by giving you also a local focus on how we're responding to the Environment Act through our 1, 2, 3 trial to do with food waste. And so we also have a presentation that will take you through both the feedback we've got from customers, and the data that we've gathered in terms of how that is proceeding. I think it's also important to note that we'll cover how we're working with our partner, West Sussex County Councillors, the Waste Disposal Authority, to work up options on how we can respond following the trial. What the trial is telling us and how people are responding to the trial is critical to what we're trying to achieve in the district in helping people deliver what they need, what they want, and what they want to do, particularly around food waste. And one of the reasons that we're focusing on this is not just that it's a service we provide, but also for what we found from working with people and their feedback is it's starting to change the way in which they look at recycling, and they look particularly at food waste. And that has a number of benefits, both in terms of meeting what we need to do as an authority around our targets to do with waste and recycling, but also how they respond in terms of reducing their own food waste and therefore how much they spend on food. And as you'll appreciate, that's critical in a time, in current times. So what I wanted to highlight here, and we'll talk through both the feedback, we'll talk through the legislative framework and what we do and don't know, and we'll then talk about the 1, 2, 3 trial. I think the first thing to say is that it's a challenging trial to start. We're asking people to change the ways in which they recycle, and that can be difficult, and we know from other authorities they've struggled to do that. We are, to be frank, ahead of the game in that. And what we're also finding is that many of our residents involved in the trial, the vast majority in the trial, are also ahead of the game in what they want to achieve in terms of recycling and food waste. And I draw your particular attention to the quote from one of our residents, how they're initially worried about the cycle and how many times we're picking up residual waste. But actually what they're finding is it works for them, and we'll give you the data that supports that. So just to give you a refresher, if you like, and I appreciate that a number of you won't necessarily need this, but I think it's just good to all start in the first place, is the government gives us sets the legislative framework and the national policy for how we deal with waste and recycling. West Sussex County Council is the Waste Disposal Authority, and they provide county-wide services for the disposal infrastructure, so they have to make investment in the disposal infrastructure, and they have powers of direction over the waste collection authorities, and that's us. We work in partnership, as you expect, with West Sussex and our neighbours in the West Sussex Waste Partnership, and we're all collectively looking at how we can increase recycling to meet the government's targets. So, Jo.
So, within this complex system, what is that we, the Waste Collection Authority, actually do. Collecting household waste and recycling sounds like a very simple principle, but as alluded to by Simon, we have to operate within a complex legislative framework. Some of the collections we make are statutory, so we have to do them, and in order to meet our current statutory responsibilities, we collect residual waste in a black wheelie bin and dry recycling altogether in a blue lidded wheelie bin. The type of materials collected in the blue lidded wheelie bin must adhere to current legislation, and we operate an alternate weekly collection service with residual waste collected 1 week and dry recycling the next. Some of the collections we make are discretionary, and that means we can levy a charge for them if we so wish. Charges are permitted in order to financially support the provision of the service, and on the basis that not all properties generate these type of wastes, incorporating the cost for these services within the existing council tax payments would not be fair. Now, whilst we don't have to provide these collections, it's certainly accepted across the country that in order to meet the targets to reduce the amount of waste disposed of, waste collection authorities should. Now, we undertake 3 different types of discretionary collections and levy a charge for both garden waste collections and bulky waste collections, but clinical waste collections are free. Now, in addition to fulfilling statutory responsibilities and offering discretionary services, waste collection authorities are also rightly pushed to achieve best practice. These services further enable us to meet targets and also support householders to do the right thing. At present, best practice advice suggests supplementing statutory and discretionary services with separate food waste collections and also collection of small electricals and textiles, and we collect small electricals fortnightly from the curbside at present. Now, we provide these services to over 69,000 households, and this means that on an average week, we're emptying around about 90,000 bins. So, how are we doing with all this? The aim of monitoring performance against these measures shown on the screen is primarily to allow us to benchmark ourselves against others, but also strive for improvement locally. We run really successful collection services that are performing as well as they can do. The amount of waste disposed of in the black wheelie bin is low, and our recycling rate is as high as it could be under our current service provision. The contamination rate for our service is exceptional and a tribute to our residents for engaging so well and making best use of the services that we offer. Our garden waste services, as we all know, exceptionally popular, and with 22,300 subscribers, we're currently working to expand and allow a further 7,000 subscribers to join.
Okay, so we're just going to sort of zoom back out to the national picture now. As has already been explained, obviously waste management is an area that's highly regulated by government, and it's subject to regular legislative and policy changes. The most recent example of this is the Environment Act 2021, which is going to have a significant impact on the services we provide and those of our partners and our residents. As well as air quality, drainage, carbon net zero and biodiversity, it also covers specific aspects of waste and recycling and resource efficiency. And it puts in place the legal instruments that are required to implement the government's waste and resources strategy, which was first produced in 2018. So this is the government waste and resources strategy. And it was produced really with the intention of introducing new statutory responsibilities in respect of waste and recycling. It was initially consulted on in 2019, and then there was a further much delayed second round of consultation that took place in July 2021. And that consultation covered some specific areas that impact on the services that we provide, proposing in particular mandatory weekly food waste collections from all properties, mandatory recycling targets that would incrementally increase to 65% by 2035, and also some proposals around mandatory collection of garden waste from all properties, either in the form of a free minimum service or some guidance around what constitutes a reasonable charge. I think it's clear that since 2018, a lot has changed, and implementation timeframes remain somewhat unclear from government. There's been various changes and delays announced since the strategy was first published, most recently last week. So at this stage, funding arrangements are yet to be confirmed. Implementation timeframes are yet to be confirmed, and the precise nature of what we're going to be expected to do is yet to be confirmed. But what we do expect is that food waste will be a mandatory requirement at some point in the not too distant future, and we do expect that there will be some government funding to support the one-off implementation of that introduction of service.
So in support of the West Sussex Waste Partnership and the desire to understand how some elements of the resources and waste strategy could work in practice, this council agreed in 2021 to implement the 123 collection trial. The original case was based on a few considerations. Our customers wanted it. So in the years preceding the trial, we asked our customers how their waste service was going and what services they would like that we don't currently provide. And over 55% of those we've asked said they wanted weekly food waste collections. We also regularly take a look at what people are throwing away in their black wheelie bin, and prior to the trial, 41% of it was made up of food waste, so we definitely knew that there was a need for the service. And finally, I know we know this, but sometimes it's worth reminding ourselves that food waste, when it gets sent to landfill, generates methane, and methane is obviously a very harmful greenhouse gas. Now, as noted, the trial is a partnership project between this council and West Sussex County Council. It's been largely funded by the County Council, who have contributed nearly £400,000, and it's also supported by a small top-up from us, and this will get us until the end of March 2024. The trial is run through our waste collection contract with Serco, and the County Council have secured and financed the processing arrangements for the food waste we collect. We also work jointly on all the communications relating to the trial. The trial was rolled out in September 2022 to just over 3,000 properties in Ashurst Wood, Lindfield and Burgess Hill. These properties were selected because they covered a range of demographics and property types, including flats. And the services covered by the 123 trial are weekly collection of food waste, the continuation of the existing commingled recycling service, which sees participants' blue-lidded wheelie bins emptied every 2 weeks, and a three weekly residual waste collection, which sees participants' black wheelie bins emptied every 3 weeks. We're also offering an optional collection of absorbent hygiene products like nappies too. And the trial, as I said, is currently scheduled to run until March 2024. Now, there are a whole load of numbers up on this slide and the next slide that we're going to run through. And I think just before I delve into some of the detail, what we can definitely tell you is this trial is performing exceptionally well. And as shown by some of the quotations that Simon showed in the first slide, is much beloved by our participants. The recycling rate, which does exclude garden waste from the calculation, is over 61%. Now, we can't directly compare this against our performance for our usual services, but it is a fantastic figure. We're collecting an average of 2.3 kilograms of food waste per household per week and have collected 360 tonnes of food waste to date. And I'm quite a visual person, and that is the equivalent to 30 double-decker buses, if you want to picture 360 tonnes. Now, what's interesting is the next set of figures tell us how much less is going into the black wheelie bin. So residual waste itself is down, food waste in the black bin is down, and the amount of recyclable material in the black bin is also down. Now, fundamentally, this is everything any council hopes for when introducing a significant change like this, and it really does demonstrate how well participants have responded and how well our partnership with West Sussex County Council has developed. Now, as we've said, we've not achieved these results on our own, and how our participants feel about the service is really important to us. We undertook a survey of households taking part in the trial, and over 40% of our participants completed that survey, and 70% of those completing the survey were very or fairly satisfied, and 88% of them found their existing black wheelie bins sufficient for the 3 weekly collections. We've reached 90% participation rate, and 7.5% of our trial properties are registered for an AHP collection. And if you remember our first slide, the feedback that we've received gives us comfort, but it also allows us to further develop the learning from the trial.
Okay, so final slide from me. So what next? The trial's approved and funded through a combination of money from the county council and money from this council until March next year. And it had been expected when we agreed to proceed with the trial in 2021 that there would have been further clarity from government by now to enable us to take an informed decision around a way forward. But as I said, that clarity is not yet there. So the precise details, the anticipated timescales and the funding arrangements to support the implementation of the strategy all remain unclear. We do have a good relationship with the County Council, however, and they're also, as you would imagine, extremely pleased with the results of this trial and the way it's gone. So we are now working closely with them to identify options for the future and basically to give us adequate time to make any operational decisions we need to make beyond March 2024, and obviously to engage adequately with our residents. We're going to need to have made a decision about what happens next by the end of the financial year.
Thank you. So hopefully that's given you a good indication. A number of things. One, the impact of the Environment Act. Secondly, how the trial is going and has gone, and what we have learnt and what West Sussex have learnt from it. And also the next steps that we'll be taking in order to see what options there are for the future. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Lots of figures to take on board there. And before I open it up for discussion, is it possible for your slides to be put round for all council members to have a look at? It's quite difficult to take some of it all in at the same time. It's very interesting. So, if anybody would like to ask any questions. Have you pressed your button? Jackie.
Is that working?
No.
Flashing. Oh, right. Oh, sorry.
Councillor
Thank you,
Russell,
Chair.
Jackie Russell.
Just a couple of questions. Thank you for the report. By the way, it's really interesting. I think I probably should have declared I'm a West Sussex County Councillor, so I do see a bit of it on the other side. So it's nice to hear your side of things. Just a couple of things. On the paragraph 21, governance and next steps, I think paragraph B should read that West Sussex County Council is actually a disposal authority rather than a collection authority, and that's just a little thing that confused me a bit. And I know that we're in preliminary talks between the two authorities, but I'm actually quite reassured to see that this commitment to the food waste trial, which I know started in the previous administration, does actually continue. But I note that the absorbent hygiene products at 7.5%, that seems quite low. I don't know what your expectations were of that and what are your plans for that when we come to the end of March 2024. Thank you.
Yes. Joe, thank you.
Cool, thank you, Chair. So participation in the AHP trial is around about where we would expect it, based on the modelling that was undertaken prior to its introduction. I think we're seeking more feedback on how the AHP trial supports people to use the 3 weekly residual waste collection successfully. So I think we're just waiting for a little bit more information on how people feel about that service.
Thank you. Councillor Eaves.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I can confirm in my area the people who are on the trial have been really very pleased with it, which is very gratifying. I wonder if it's been more problematic to collect food waste from flats than other types of properties. Thank you.
Joe again. Thank you.
So participation has been slightly lower from flatted properties, but again, I guess in line with what we would generally expect. There are various different ways that we could use the learning that we've got from this trial to increase participation if we were to expand it further. So it's been very useful. Participation is slightly lower.
Thank you. Councillor Clark.
Thank you. Thank you. It's a really good report. I'm really pleased with the way it's going and how the positive sides of it. I'm not on the food trial, but I have I compost all my green waste and all the other stuff in my garden. And I'm ready for, to have the food waste, because my grey bin, I only have about 2 bags in that now, and I could get a smaller grey bin, so I'm very pleased. One of the questions I've got going forward with the success of this, and I'm sure it's going to be successful, have we got plans for the vehicles that are collected to change at all for the future? Because that would be something that would be very, I know it's costly, but it'd be a very good, if there's any other type of vehicles like hydrogen or electric or something that's going to get them, and I'd be pleased to know about the plans. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. So obviously vehicles are a long-term investment. They're something that that the contractor prices for when they bid for the contract, and we renewed our fleet, I think it was in 2018. So there's another 5 or so years left on the remaining fleet. I think, so at that point, we would certainly be looking at what's available on the market and what sort of viable options there are in terms of alternative fuels and so on. I think it's fair to say that alternative fuels in respect of things like waste collection vehicles are still in their infancy, and where they are being trialled, they're generally being trialled in urban areas where the rounds aren't so big. So it's something that we're obviously going to keep watching, and we'll be looking to the market when the time comes to re-procure the fleet.
Thank you. Are there any other questions anybody wants to raise?
Councillor Knight?
Oh, your name's disappeared. Have you pressed a button?
We're often confused. I saw a slide up there that was showing what can and can't be, in terms of food, be recycled. Could we perhaps go back over? I'm very interested in that. So things like peanut butter and jam, can that be recycled and such like? Could we flip that slide back up? Is that possible? Who's your data protection officer?
Is it that one, Jim?
I think there was another one. I saw one with meat on or something, wrapping it in. That's a good starting point. But there was another one with something about meat, wrapping it in newspaper or something. I thought it'd be fish and chips, but.
I think it is that one.
That'd be a good starting point. That one, going back one.
Did you have a question?
So was it about?
Well,
jam
what can and
peanut
can't,
butter?
what food can be recycled and what can't?
Get that.
Thank you, Chair. So any food, essentially, so any food that has gone out of date, any food that is on your plate that you don't want to eat, bones, eggshells, fish, so essentially any food that is not in packaging.
Right, thank you. Councillor Eggleton.
Thank you very much for this. It certainly looks fantastic. My mind is always drawn to the opportunities for improvement. So just from the 30% of those who are not very or fairly satisfied, is there anything potentially actionable in terms of their qualitative feedback? What kinds of challenges are you identifying that you can potentially use to make this even better?
Jo.
Thank you, Chair. So I think with the 30% that perhaps didn't give us quite the positive feedback that the others did, that could be down to their very own individual circumstances. So, for example, some of the challenges around space for bins, some of the challenges that people might have as a particularly large family, for example. So what we're finding is where people are not giving us positive feedback, it's because of a very specific circumstance to them that we need to help them with. So, and this has all been part of, really good learning that we will be able to take forward if we roll out the service.
Thank you. Councillor Luca.
Thank you. A couple of questions, really. I find the report very helpful. and interesting. And as a resident in one of the areas that's in the pilot, it seems to work very well. And happily, we kind of contribute as little as possible to the waste food recycling. I mean, one of the challenges here, my question is really about how much have we deterred people from buying food they don't actually need by virtue of this pilot? And my second question is really to the Cabinet about the future of the programme in terms of how we lobbying West Sussex County Council and the other districts and boroughs in West Sussex to try and ensure that there is a continuation of this project going forward.
So Simon, thank you.
Thank you. So the data that we showed you around the food waste and residual bins and the residual waste reduced and dry recycling, that shows that people are reducing the amount of food waste. And certainly from the feedback we've had and some of the quotations that I showed you earlier, that's some of the behaviour change that we're seeing, because people can actually now see what they're throwing away. Some are shocked, some surprised, and therefore their purchases are different.
Do we have any numbers on how much you think we're saving?
We do have the data. So the data that we showed you, when we send those slides through, we'll highlight those for you.
Thank you. And the other question about the Cabinet, the portfolio holder, Councillor Hobbs, is on holiday this week, so maybe Councillor Edgerton can take that one, please.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. One of the first meetings I had when I became leader of the council was to have a one-to-one with Councillor Paul Marshall, the leader of West Sussex County Council. We did discuss our food trial and the rollout of food waste recycling across the county. It was a very productive meeting. We are in complete agreement on doing what we can to at least maintain the trial in mid-Sussex if we can, but bear in mind we're only funded out to March 2024 next year, and for both the county and for the district there are financial implications for extending it, but we agreed that we would leave, these aren't his words or mine, but I'll paraphrase, we wouldn't leave any stone unturned to see how we could at least continue the trial in mid-Sussex, because not only just for us, but in terms of demonstrating to the other boroughs and districts that it works, it's really, really good evidence. So we are going to try and do that, and we would like to be able to expand it if we can. It's really unlikely that we could expand it across the district in full because of the cost. The challenge that the county has is really critical mass. So at the moment, really, we are leading the way across West Sussex. So if you compare us, for example, with Crawley still has a one-bin collection. So there's a lot of catching up to do with some of the boroughs and districts. I have had conversations with some of my colleagues in authorities run by the Liberal Democrats, and they are keen to take part in the food waste recycling, but most of them are waiting on central government to decide what funding they will put in place to assist it. And of course, I'm not wishing to politicise this too much because this is about the environment, but we've seen recent announcements in the last couple of weeks around the government delaying decisions on various aspects of net zero, etc. So there is a worry that this is just going to get pushed out into the long grass because there's a general election coming, and I think for all of us, regardless of our politics, that would be a real disappointment, because what we're doing is of such benefit to the residents of mid-Sussex, and I think all of us would want to see what can be done at district council level, county council level, and at central government to see this rolled out as far as possible. So that's where we are at the moment.
Thank you, thank you. Councillor Bennett.
Thank you, Chairman. A couple of comments to add to the leader's observations. More on the first question, actually, Councillor Lucraft, about reducing food waste. On Monday morning, I went to an event organised by Sustain, and it was about farming and about food security in the country at large. And what I learned was that quite a lot of our food waste doesn't happen with the end consumer, but it happens throughout the food distribution function. And so, as well as helping residents reduce their food waste and providing food waste collection, actually as a country, what we need to think about is our food distribution structures, trying to make those distribution chains a little bit shorter, and by that, reducing the food waste overall. I've got some notes, happy to share them if anybody's interested. But I think the amount of food that is wasted in our country at the moment is something staggering. I think it was something like 30%. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bennett. Has anybody got any questions following on from those explanations?
I have a question that's not actually related to that, but do we still have a waiting list for our green bins?
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, we do, but we're working through that now as we have another vehicle, so we're working through that.
Thank you very much. If there are no more questions, we'll go to the recommendations, and the committee are recommended to note the context and background of the Act and the impact of delays and considering those delays, and recommend to Cabinet that Mid Sussex should continue to work in partnership with West Sussex County Council to identify options to secure the continuation or expansion of the 123 trial. And can you vote with your buttons, please?
Am I allowed to vote?
Yes. Yes. Oh, right. You all right? Yes. 11 for yes. Thank you. That's all been agreed. Thank you. Okay. So we'll go on to the next item, which is number 7. The Scrutiny Committee Work Programme, and I invite Louise Duffield to introduce it. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. So this report responds to the discussion you had at your last meeting in terms of setting your work programme for the year, and also proposes some ways that we can make the best use of your time by using all of the tools that are available to Scrutiny. So I've set out in the report things like briefings, workshops, working groups and so on, which enable you to make the best use of these formal meetings. And as you think about new work that you'd like to propose for formal scrutiny reviews, suggest a set of questions that you might want to consider in proposing those topics to the Chairman. Secondarily, the report proposes a working group to give members the opportunity to develop their thinking and understanding as we set the budget. The meeting in January is a significant and complex technical meeting around scrutinising the budget, and we all know that the Council needs to set the budget. Our date is the 28th of February next year. And what we're aiming to do through that working group is give members sufficient information and time to develop a consensus on their thinking where possible, and to understand the significant challenges as well as the levers that we can pull, and also to have an understanding of the government funding as that evolves between now and Christmas. So happy to take any questions on either of those two elements of the report.
So, has anybody any views on the list that we've had sent round to us, right, the work programme? Press your button. Councillor
Thank you.
Russell.
It's always
Thank
me
you.
going first. This is from my understanding, this one. It suggests to me that the working group will be a party of 8 members of the Scrutiny Committee. There's only 11 of us on the committee. Isn't that just the Scrutiny Committee? Why isn't that Scrutiny Committee reporting back to the remaining 3 on the Scrutiny Committee. It seems quite a large group. I don't really quite understand that. And the other thing, I've read the list under paragraph 18, and 4 out of the 5 I get, but I'm not understanding why we are reviewing GP provision. Does that come under our remit as district council? I know as county council we have a health remit. Where are we effective in doing that? What's the outcome of that? So I'm just trying to understand that. Thank you.
Louise?
Thank you, Chairman. So on the first point, I think setting the budget is a vital function of council, and as a council that's in no overall control, the broader the group of members who've been actively involved in that process, I think that's really important. Setting the group at 8 was similar to the work that we did on the district plan working group to bring a large group of people together. And in terms of political balance, setting it at 8 gives a good number of parties the opportunity to have a significant contribution. So it's really about building and developing consensus. On the second part, I think it was proposed by members because it's really important to residents, and I think this is about using our persuading and influencing powers with our partners.
Thank you, Louise. Does that satisfy you? No.
It sort of does, but I'm just trying to think. All the others I can see there could be a meaningful outcome because that's, as I understand it, within the remit of the district council. But I know as a county councillor, obviously we do have some dealings with the NHS, but NHS is NHS, and we are just a sounding board, really. So I'm assuming that's what we are in this respect as well.
I think when we had the water companies in for a recent scrutiny, and I think that was a range of things. That was the opportunity to present to some senior people the real concerns our residents have, the opportunity to develop our understanding, and I suppose to position ourselves as an important partner as we move forward. So I think all of those are really valid outcomes for a scrutiny committee. That's okay.
Thank you, Louise. Councillor Bennett.
Thank you, Chairman. If I could just come in on that. Actually, 4:30 this afternoon, I had a meeting with 2 of the senior planning team about the ICB and about healthcare provision in relation to our planning function and ensuring that where we've got a growing population, we need to make sure we've got the right NHS provision in place. So it feels like very relevant to the meeting I've had this afternoon.
Thank you. One comment I'd like to make, if we look at page 14, item 18, where the list is, we appear to have rather a lot on the 17th of April. Obviously, those items would have to be separate, and we will need to look at the workload that means for the officers and how we can fit that in. But I don't know if anybody has any preferences as to which one they would want to do first. No? Well, we'll wait and see what we come up with then. Thank you.
Yeah.
Louise, you wanted to speak?
Oh, go on. I was just going to say, there's no problem if you can't prioritise right now. We can every meeting we have an opportunity to look at the work programme, so we can come back to that as we get closer to April.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much. Any more questions? No, I don't see anything. So we'll go to the recommendation. I won't read it all out, but it's 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5 on page 11 of the report. And can you vote on your touchscreens, please? That's 11 for yes. Thank you very much indeed. That's been agreed. Thank you. So we go on to item 8, which are questions pursuant to Council Procedure Rule 10.2. Due notice of which has been given. There are none. And so I close the meeting at 8, sorry. 20 to 8. Thank you everybody for attending.
Thank you, Chair.